Hello. Good evening, everyone. Grab yourself a drink and finish off the pizza, and let's get started. All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, grab the last couple of slices of pizza. The drinks are awkwardly on the floor at the back. I'm not sure what we did wrong this month. All right, so thanks everyone for coming. My name's Jesse. There's normally Rob to my left, but he's unwell tonight. I might grab Fletch with the microphone for questions later on. Thanks for coming to, I think it's CocoaHeads 119, if I'm counting correctly. It could be 120. I'm going to start with just a little bit of administration, and then we'll get straight into our presentations. First order of business is our code of conduct, and it's just this is the brief overview, but it is on our website. It just talks about how to behave and how to conduct yourself in and around everyone here. But pretty much the TLDR is that regardless of gender identity, expression, age, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, race, ethnicity, religion, or lack thereof, or technology choices, help make this an inclusive environment. If something untoward happens to you, or you witness something untoward, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me directly. We have the code of conduct on the website and code of conduct at melbournecocoaheads.com as well. And I should have my notes here, but the code of conduct email is a group that we've got set up behind the scenes that comes to a few of us. And just to let you know, that comes to Ben Deckies, Kate Lanyon, Sean Woodhouse, Johnny Sanger, and I. And if you have a problem with one of the people on that list, I don't have a backup to that question to that at this second. Maybe Barry, you can help me with that one. Speak to Barry. So far this year, we've had no problems. It's been a great year. Upcoming events, lots of upcoming events. Hack Night is next Wednesday at Cognizant. This is our combined GDG Melbourne CocoaHeads Hack Night, and that's been going really, really well this year. Drinks Night is October 30D. That's my date issue this month. That's this last Tuesday of this month, Drinks Night. NS Breakfast is Friday, the 2nd of November. Marius, did we do it this month? Was there NS Breakfast this month?
It was just me, so if it's just me, I don't want to count some.
It still counts.
Then yes.
There's GDG DevFest as well on October 27th. I've got a slide about that in a sec. And the Melbourne AWS group, which is co-run by Rob Amos from Melbourne CocoaHeads, is on the 31st.
He's not there at the moment.
He's not there. He's normally there. He might be watching. GDG DevFest is a mini conference, one-day conference run by the Google group, the equivalent of Melbourne CocoaHeads for Google group. They have a mobile stream and machine learning, an AI stream, and a web stream as well. If those technologies interest you, or that community, if you're a member of that community, they're doing that this month. I think it's on a Saturday instead of their meetup. And I know. Sorry. Oh. guess that's good for them. That's good to know. I didn't check that. Thanks. That's a photo from one of our hack nights. It's all happening. The space that Cognizant have just down the road here is really, really nice. You can find CocoaHeads at CocoaHeads.com. We're at Melbourne Cocoa on Twitter. Slack, we have a Slack channel that's got lots of discussion week in, week out. If you've got any questions that you want answered, there's normally a few people that answer all the questions there. I put all the presentations that we do and that I record and that I live stream up on YouTube every month. And so far I'm up to date with this year, so there's been some great presentations this year. And I'm Jesse at MelbourneCocoaHeads.com. And that's our screenshot of YouTube. I think it's a month old, but there's more up there now. And we still don't have our 200 subscribers, so if you haven't subscribed to YouTube, to our YouTube channel, subscribe, because once we get 200, we can have a custom URL. Good idea. Yeah, give me both of your accounts. Give me all of them. Every time I mention it, there's normally one or two. It's great. It's only going to take another 3 years to get there. Sponsors for this year, realestate.com.au are our major sponsor. They've been a great sponsor for many, many years. A couple of REA team are here tonight. Silver sponsors, Itty Bitty Apps, Biloo, Cognizant, who help us out with the hack night as well. J-Tribe and Explore, who are upstairs here. Any of the Explore team here? I always try and call them out. No. Our venue, YBF Ventures, have been great this year. I'm hoping, I haven't mentioned anything, I'm hoping to grab this again for next year. Tonight's agenda, I put out a call this month for speakers for the rest of the year. I put it out on every channel multiple times and it's came through okay. Pablo's going to talk about some core NFC, which was great because we had a natural conversation about NFC on Slack this month, so perfect timing. Ed's going to talk about his experiences at NS Spain and MobiConf. Is Jet here yet? I haven't seen Jet yet. Uh-oh. Jet's going to talk about some research he's been doing on CI and CD infrastructure. And then I've gone back, I haven't finished it yet, but I've gone back and trawled through our Today I Learned channel from this month. There's some really good stuff in there that's worth just bringing up, all sorts of random bits and pieces. Before I get off the stage, I will do our monthly Who's Hiring. So if you or your company's hiring, do you want to just put your hand up and I'll point you out and then you can say who you are and where you're from? I saw a couple of hands here. Is that it? All right, Matt, you're up.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt. I'm from Domestic Cash Software. We're just downtown. We've got some really interesting projects going on at the moment. We're looking for mid and senior iOS developers, Android designers. Who won't be looking for?
If you need a job. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. And you guys will be around in the break. The three of you from Domesticate, just grab any of them. They're all friendly. All right, so I'll get out of the way, and I'll just swap the laptops over, and Pablo's going to jump up straight away. Good chance to grab a quick refresher if you finished a beer in 9 minutes, and we'll be back in a sec.
All right. Hi, my name is Pablo Caif, and I work at iFlix, and this presentation is basically about my experience with CornFC and the stuff that I've been doing with it. So let's get started. So just gonna quickly talk about NFC. So NFC stands for Near Field Communication. And there are two types. You got the active NFC devices and the passive NFC devices. And I actually find very interesting the passive NFC devices because they behave in a similar way, or they're similar to what you see with the inductive charging, the wireless charging, in a way that you get the reader close to the tag, say if you have a tag. And the magnetic field of the reader induces an electric current on the NFC chip, and it powers it on. And then it can start talking to the reader. I find that very interesting. They typically are used to store small amount of information. There might be some special cases where they might store a bit more information, but most of the cases is about 8Ks. And they used quite a lot to initiate peer-to-peer communication. So that means that if you want to pair Bluetooth or pair, for example, to connect to a Wi-Fi, NFC will just give you the necessary information to connect to that Bluetooth. For example, the Bluetooth ID or the address. And then you can continue with the Bluetooth pairing, knowing that bit of information. If we're talking about Wi-Fi, it might give you the seed and the password, so you can go and connect. They're also really good to provide quick, easy ways of bits of information. So, for example, if you have inventory and you want to categorize and you want to know what it is, or for example, in museums, you might have tags with information about some specific piece of art, so you can get close and read the information, or URLs and things like that. And of course, they use also for contactless payment in its secure way. So, for example, Apple Pay and even the actual, all the credit cards that we have here in Australia, they got this very same NFC chip that gets powered by this magnetic field. So last year, Apple finally opened up CornFC, which became available on iOS 11 for iPhone 7 and upwards. Still, we got the Apple Watch, iPhone 6, 6S, and the Plus versions, but it's not supported there. So if you want to use it there, you need to get an iPhone 7 and upwards. And the type of NFC reading that is supported first is read-only, and also it supports the NDEF format. And the way it works is they're trying to keep the security there, so the app itself doesn't have anything to do, it hasn't anything to do with the hardware that reads the NFC, and neither with the lower levels that read all these bytes from the NFC chip. So all that happens outside the sandbox, and it's handled by iOS, and then you get the callback through a delegate with the message, the NFC message that were read. Which means that all the low-level things, and especially the security involved in terms of being able to tamper with credit cards and things like that, that's all not visible. Kind of like Touch ID, which that lives behind the security enclave. This year, with iOS 12, they added support for background reading, which means you just get your device, and if there is any NFC tag, you can just get it close without running your app, and it will run your app, and you will get through an NS user activity the NFC tag message. I'm gonna just touch a little bit more later about that. And since it's very limited, the API is actually quite small and simple to use. So first, I'm going to tell you how the NFC messages are composed. This is the NDEF message itself. So this is what we actually have access through Core NFC. So we got the message, which might have multiple records. And each record has a header and a payload. And the header itself has identifiers, a length, which is for the payload, so you know how long is the payload, and a type, which is the name type. And this can be, for example, if it's URI, or if it is Bluetooth pairing, like media. And encoded into the payload, there is also the actual MIME type. So, for example, if we are, let's say, if we have a URL in there, that URL might be, I don't know, maybe an SMS contact or something like that. That MIME type is encoded in the payload. But from Core NFC, what you get to see is an abstracted version. So you get to see that MIME type, which is called type. You get to see the name type and also the payload itself. And both the type and the payload are visible as data. And when you want to do this background reading, what you need to have in this message is the first record needs to be an URI, which with the actual associated domain of your app that needs to be defined in your Xcode. That is what it will cause iOS to run your app, and in the app delegate, you will get that callback with the NS user activity and passing the message itself. And then you can keep going through the records and read them. So when you want to use it, it's actually fairly straightforward. So you need to add the NFC tag reading capability. And you know, Xcode being Xcode, sometimes may happen that even you add the capability in the capabilities file, that key come Apple Developer NFC Reader Session formats. It's not quite right, so it's not maybe it's not there. It happened to me a couple of times. So it's just not going to work. So you need to go there, make sure that it's actually being added. I think it was fixed in Xcode 10, but I'm not sure. Same thing with the Core NFC framework. It happened to me a couple of times that it wasn't added automatically, so of course, make sure it gets added. And you need to provide a description of why do you need to use you know, NFC. Same way you do with a camera. That needs to go in the plist, info plist. And when you want to use it, of course, we need to import Core NFC. And there is this NFC NDEF reader session, which is this object that it will allow you to trigger the readings. So it's just very straightforward. You can provide small bits of configuration, instantiate that, then you run begin session, and then you will get this system dialog popping up and telling you, you know, get close to the NFC tag. And then once the reading is completed, you get back the callback coming from the NFC, the Core NFC, through a delegate method called reader session did detect NDEF messages. So you need to also adopt that protocol. How does it look in code? So as I was saying before, it's not supported on every device, even if for example, the iPhone 6 has NFC reader. In my Core NFC, it's not supported, so we need to check first that it's supported. Then we instantiate this reader session, and we pass the delegate. In my case, the delegate is the same class. Then we pass the queue, where it's going to hand the results back, where it's going to do the call to the delegate, which if you pass nil, it will just use its own serial queue. So if you're doing anything with the UI or anything like that, make sure you go into the main thread. This invalidate after first read is basically to, if you're, for example, going through inventory and you need to do multiple readings, it will just keep this reading up, and it will keep doing the callback to read message until you do invalidate session. Typically, you might do just one read. And then, of course, you need to provide a message saying, you know, some descriptive message that you're going to see on that dialog. And then when you call begin, it's going to start reading. So the way of how you get to see the messages is through this delegate call, where you can get the session and the message. The messages as an array. You might want to go through the messages, and then you might want to check or be interested in a specific type name format. In my case, I'm just interested in the media. And then, as I was saying, you got this type, which comes as data, so you need to turn it into string, and the payload itself might contain the data that you're interested in. So, for example, for Bluetooth pairing, I think it's the OOB, out-of-band protocol. You get a payload, and if you go to the NFC forum, you can get to see how all the information is contained there, for example, the Bluetooth device and everything like that. So, when Apple last year announced that, I got pretty excited because I got interested in a specific use case, which was I really like. I enjoy doing iOS development a lot, but I also like photography. So I got this mirrorless camera, which is like a sort of a small version of an SLR. There's no mirror, but and it takes quite good pictures. It allows me to send the pictures to my phone through Wi-Fi, and it has an NFC tag. I don't think it's visible from here, but if you're using an Android device, you can do the NFC pairing and connect to the camera's Wi-Fi. On iOS, it's pretty annoying because you actually need to find the picture you want to send to your phone on the camera. Then you need to go to settings. You need to go to the Wi-Fi, find the Wi-Fi, when sometimes it doesn't show immediately. Then you need to connect to the Wi-Fi, and then close settings, go to the camera's app, and wait until it starts downloading the pictures. So I'm thinking, maybe there is something that I can use to extract this information, the Wi-Fi seed and the password, and I can connect to the camera. So that was the plan. Read the NFC NDEF messages, find the Wi-Fi details, and somehow connect to it. Fortunately, there was actually something else released on last year with iOS 11, which came together with the network extensions. Network extensions is a pretty interesting framework which it's been there for a while, and allows you to do a whole bunch of nice stuff, such as having your own proxy, you can act as a proxy, or all these VPN apps, they use network extensions because you can have your own VPN or implement content filters and things like that. And you can actually do, if you have a proprietary or a custom configuration to connect to a specific Wi-Fi, you can use I think it's the hotspot configuration helper or something like that to connect to this point. But the problem with all this stuff is that you actually need to request to Apple the entitlement, and you need to justify why do you need to use that. So it's not as straightforward. But these last two over there are a complete different entitlement. So you can now add a Wi-Fi configuration or remove it and connect to one that you have previously added. And it sits on a complete different capability. So you just enable that. You don't care about the network extensions. And, it's quite easy. So I started tinkering with that and see what I could do. So if you want to set up that, as I was saying before, just need to add the hotspot configuration capability. Make sure that the network extensions framework is been added. Then if you want to use it, we need to import the framework, we need to get an instance of this hotspot configuration manager, which is a singleton that it will give us the ability of adding these configurations. And then with the Wi-Fi seed that I extracted from the NFC tag and the password, I can create a configuration, a hotspot configuration, and pass it on to this configuration manager. And it allows you to pass a completion block. So it will tell you, yeah, I was able to add the configuration, or no, fail. And of course, you need to make sure you're handling the errors. So this is how it looks in code. Different to the NFC we just saw, this is available in all the devices. So we need to make sure that we're not running on the simulator because it doesn't work in the simulator. So we get this hotspot configuration manager, as I was saying. We create the configuration with the seed and the password. And then when we call this apply, what it will do is it will add the configuration, and immediately after adding the configuration, it will try to connect to the Wi-Fi. And you will get like a message saying, do you want to connect to this Wi-Fi? Yes or no. However, if there was an error adding the configuration, you get this error, so you might do something, might want to do something on like handle different errors, or if it's succeeded, you might want to do something else. In my case, what I did is I opened the Sony app. So the Sony app carries on and keeps and goes and downloads the picture. So showed you the demo. Okay, so this is the camera. So for example, if I go and take a picture of this plant, you can see there the picture, right? And of course, got no other, it's not yet in my phone. So I started working on this app. That's something I haven't released yet, but for now I'm just using the Sony's camera app. So when I start the NFC reading, it will just present that. That's the panel that I was telling you. If I get it close to the NFC chip, you get to see that, message, do you want to join to the camera's Wi-Fi? And then, if the demo goes, oh no. Okay, we might want to try it again. Oh no, it connected. So that's one of the problems I'm going to tell you later. So I managed to connect to the Wi-Fi, downloaded the picture. And if I go now to my pictures, photo should be there. So, as you just saw, not everything is all roses. So there are a few pain points that I ran into as I was working with this, a few bumps in the road. The first thing is, on iOS 12, the Core NFC framework was removed in the devices that don't support Core NFC. So before that, on iOS 11, it was present on all the installed images. So even on an iPad and stuff like that, when you were linking that framework, it was just getting the framework, or it was just returning, no, Core NFC is not available. But iOS 12, it got removed. So I found myself in the situation of my app crashing all the time without knowing what the hell was going on. Then I started tinkering on the installed images of iOS, and I found that they were gone. So fortunately, you can actually add as optional a framework. So now on iOS 12, when you add in the framework, make sure you add in as optional, so your app doesn't crash. NFC NDEF is read-only. It'd be good to have it write, to be able to write on tags. I think it'd be really cool. But it's not possible yet. Hopefully, sometime in the future. With the hotspot configuration, a problem that you have is, as you saw there, it's not possible to know if the connection was successful or not. Your app doesn't get any notification or anything like that. You just get a callback when the configuration was added, which means you don't really know if it was able to connect to the Wi-Fi. So you're at the mercy that that happened. Of course, you can do something like detect the Wi-Fi that you're connected to, but it adds like an extra step. It'd be nice to being able to know, yeah, you connected. In my case, I'm not checking for that, but I'm planning to add that stuff. Also, if the user went, for example, with the camera, added manually the Wi-Fi details into the settings on their phone, you're going to get an error when you try to connect to that. It would be really good if you could just connect. If it already exists, you're trying to connect that to a Wi-Fi that is already there, why not to just connect? But now you get an error saying you can't connect to that because it has been already added. And you can remove it, of course, because you're just an app running on a sandbox. So whoever is using this needs to go to settings, remove it, and then your app will be able to add it. And also that dialog that you saw saying, do you want to connect to this Wi-Fi? It will happen every time. Every time you add the configuration, you will see that. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah?
Hold on, let me grab the mic. Was it you last? Yep. I want to hear your question. Thank you. I'm wondering, do you know if there is any way to have some sort of a device that acts as an NFC tag for sort of testing purposes or simulation purposes? Or maybe there is a simple way to, I don't know, somehow make these NFC tags so I can, I don't know, make 5 and put them across my room or something and then have some app that uses those.
Something that I started experimenting with was the Bose QC35 headphones. They have an NFC tag, so you can wait to do the Bluetooth pairing. So I was playing with that and reading and going through all the details of the record. If not, you need some device that is able to write. So for example, I don't know, maybe an Android device can be used to write the NFC tag.
That actually sounds like an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Why not? Thank you.
You can get RFID in front of a Raspberry Pi as well, and do it that way.
That's a good one.
Do you know if there's any standards for the actual message bodies? Like, there must be a ton of cameras that have Wi-Fi hotspot capabilities. Do they all use the same standards for the message formats, or would that be a proprietary thing?
So there is a standard for the Wi-Fi pairing. However, the Sony camera doesn't follow that standard. So I had to try to hack whatever they were sending on that message and try to find the Wi-Fi details.
Hi, Pablo. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. Just had a quick question. What about the cards like Mikey cards or something? I mean, why can't you read them? They're not in standard NDEF. Are they encoded, or how do you read them, basically?
I would imagine that they don't follow the NDEF format, and they probably are secure. So with CoreNFC, it's not possible to read them.
But what happens with the cards like your, Apple Pay or Woolworths, where you've got on the wallet and so on?
You don't. Basically, it's like if you weren't reading anything at all. You get it close to it, and nothing happens. So you only get that callback in the delegate when it's able to read an NDEF message.
Okay. No, thank you.
My question is, how does it work if the app isn't suspended or if the OS kills it? And can we read the NFC tag in those states? And if it does, then is there any launch option key that I can use to identify? For example, like it does for the location service?
So on iOS 11, with the iPhone 7 and upwards, no. When the app gets suspended, you don't have access to that. The only way is actually running the app and yourself as a user initiating that action. However, on iOS 12, with iPhone 10s, 10s Max, and 10R, you can do the reading in the background. So as soon as you, I should be able, for example, if I was able to code, you know, the proper URI here in the camera, I should be able to just get it close when the phone's sleeping, and you know, get my app waking up, and be able to connect to the Wi-Fi and start downloading the picture.
Is there any launch option key for that?
Sorry, any?
The launch option key, like finish launch option, you have those keys.
Yeah, so it's the, I think it's the did restore launching or something like that. I can't remember. It's the same one that you get when you are using NS user activity. I can't remember off the top of my head the precise signature. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me try and go through these, try and recap what you just did, or my interpretation of it. So you were able to connect to the Wi-Fi direct on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to hard code the SSID and the password in the Apple app, and then when you use the NFC tag on the camera, then you told the app to connect to using Wi-Fi direct to the camera.
Yeah, so the camera advertises its seat and its password, its own Wi-Fi's details through this NFC tag. So by reading that NFC tag, I'm able to get that information and then use any hotspot configuration to connect to the Wi-Fi.
Right, right. So it used the phone's Wi-Fi. It used the phone's hotspot.
No, the camera's hotspot.
It used the camera's
yeah,
hotspot.
so yeah.
And then it connected using Wi-Fi direct. Then it became two machines on the LAN, on the Wi-Fi direct LAN. And then you read one file using Samba or a variant of Samba.
No, what I'm doing is I'm just for now using the Sony's app. So the Sony's app just carries on as you were, you know, I'm simulating the act of going to settings, selecting the Wi-Fi, connecting to the Wi-Fi, and then manually opening the app.
Yeah.
But I'm just doing by, you know, just getting close and reading the tag. All that happens in one action.
And the Sony app, because now you're on the LAN, was able to detect the camera and show the.
Yeah.
Show the
I should be, my plans in the future is to be able to download the photos myself and do maybe something, but yeah, that's something.
Any more questions? I want to follow up with Tristan about Raspberry Pis becoming NFC tags themselves, because that sounds cool. And I have a lot of Raspberry Pis at the moment. If there's no more questions, thank you, Pablo. That was excellent.
Thanks.
Next up, we've got Ed. We're just going to swap the laptops over. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Good chance for a refresher. All right, let's get started again. Ed's been over to Europe, but now he's back. I'll swap you to there. Sorry. All right, guys, let's get started with the next presentation.
Am I live?
You are. And
Okay.
yeah, welcome to Ed.
Thank you. I see dev people. It was a good t-shirt. So I'll get started. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. This is a clicker. Yes, it works. So, quick introduction about myself. We've got about 18 slides of content to get through, so I need to rip through these in the next 10 minutes and leave enough time for Q&A as well. But basically, that's what I'll be covering. Who am I? I'm a management consultant in semi-retirement, and to keep myself active, I'm returning to my programming roots. All the programming I ever did used to be procedural, and now I'm trying to learn Swift with iOS and watchOS. Is that better?
I might just shuffle your microphone ever so slightly, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm going to go like that.
Okay. And to do the deep dive, I decided how could I learn some Swift? My family was going to Europe on a holiday, so I reached out to Natasha and said, what conferences are happening in Europe? She gave me a list, and I picked 2 of them, and basically bookend the start and the end of the holiday by going to those conferences. The timing was pretty poor because it happened to be, of course, coincident with the major launch of the iPhone XS and the watch. So the only chance I got to see them was actually at a duty-free at an airport on the way. The first place I went to was Logroño. If you've never heard of it, neither had I. It's in the middle of nowhere in Spain, but it happens to be on the Pilgrim's Trail from France to Santiago. And it is sort of the 3rd stage where most of the pilgrims stay for the night. It also happens to be in the wine region, and there was a wine festival that weekend. So it was kind of a nice confluence of events. And the first night of the conference was when the keynote happened, and so we all went to a pub and tried to watch the keynote in the middle of drinking and talking and shouting and all the rest of it. It didn't work very well. So because of that, I actually walked out of it and went home and went back to the hotel and watched it from the hotel. This is a relatively small conference, about 50 people at the workshop, 60 people at the workshop in day 0. The rest of the conference was about 150 to 200 people. So it's a single stream of content. So I attended all of it, but I've highlighted in gold those sessions that I found particularly useful. In particular, Daniel Steinberg, who took us through on the workshop with adding Siri shortcuts to a sample application, so we all did that on our laptops. And then on the second day, Ellen Shapiro sort of topped it off with a standard 1-hour presentation about Siri shortcuts, which helped cement all that. And then on the Friday, the standout thing for me was 2 guys from Uber talking about how Uber, from a development perspective, had grown from 3 developers in a share house on the lawn coding the first app to now 500 developers. And of course the question is, why do you need 500 developers to be able to do it? And it's because they localize in 50 countries, they're doing stuff for 600 cities, they've got about 5 different products on the ride alone, they're now adding groceries, food deliveries, etc. And they just were doing an enormous amount of customization. The problem they had was they didn't change the basic structure of their app as they did that. And so over time, all the navigation and scheduling and control of all of these different variations was being done by the login controller. So about a year ago, they decided to rework the whole thing, having looked at various alternatives, and they built themselves an approach that they've called RIBS, which stands for the router, the interactor, and the builder. And that's what they've done for the Rider app, and the Rider app is now up and running in this format. They have about 350 ribs, as I call it, behind the Rider app, and there are about, all the classes are about 300 lines of code. Unfortunately, the recording of these guys talking has not been released, and the presentation had to go through legal, and I think has been sort of watered down a bit. But it is on the website and is available for you to reach at, and that's in my notes at the end. Now, what did I enjoy the most? It was, they had a lightning talk on the Friday lunchtime, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. These three guys did a talk on programming paradigms. Now, this is a test, because there was an interpretive dance sequence. So I want you to look at the dance and shout out what the programming paradigm they are mimicking. No. No? Okay, no time. Factory. Well done. I should have brought a prize. It was a factory pattern, so I thought that was just fantastic. What was my biggest takeaway? Get started with Siri shortcuts now. It's easy to do. You can quickly get your app going. You have some, you define intents, you do a force click, you use some standard phrases that you identify from your app to Siri, and you're up and going. And it enable you to embed your app more tightly with your end users and their workflows. I don't need to do that, I've got this. The clicker. At the end of the tour, the 3 weeks of holidays, I went to Krakow. I had the misfortune of biting on something on the first night there, and I cracked my tooth and went, ow. And when I told my Polish dentist that this morning, she wasn't that impressed with the joke, but it really did happen. This is a much bigger conference, 500 people. It's in their 5th year. The NS Spain conference has been going for 10 years. But these guys are very professional, run by one of the major developer companies inside Poland. And they run basically 4 streams: Android stream, an iOS stream, a UX design stream, and anything and everything to do with mobile technology. So I was jumping from stream to stream, and again, the gold sort of highlights the sessions that I found particularly valuable. And on the second day, the two that I found valuable were in fact just voted this week as best presentations of the event. Now, it could just well be that one of those presenters is tuned into this live broadcast, because I shared with him the deck, and he was, gave me some more photographs to use. And that's Tobias Dumonk. But the reason I liked Michael Swilinski's presentation as a management consultant, his presentation was all about his company of 35 people. They have no home office. They only meet 2 or 3 times a year. And the rest of the time, they are all meeting either electronically or communicating with Slack, using the Nozbe task manager to actually schedule work between themselves. And they also don't use laptops, they're all using iPads to be able to move around and work. So it was a fantastic presentation of what the future can be like. Tobias's was even more incredible. Yours was a great presentation. His was unbelievable. He had his camera live pointing at him, and he was basically using the Face ID technology and the APIs that have been opened up with Face ID to do imaging processing of all of what he was doing. So you can see down here, there's a sort of a grid of him waving his hands and the sample snippet behind. And then further into the development, delivery of the presentation, you get into his using color and his shading and his detecting depth and so on. His phone tends to run hot, and as you can see, there's a yellow amber sign on the top right-hand side saying the phone will, and of course then it crashed. But he did a restart. Now, one of the latest things that they've added to this Face ID kit processing is the laser eyes, if you look in the corner there. So it actually detects where you're looking, and it can detect which spot in space you're looking at. And when I saw that, I thought, this is incredible. It knows that I'm looking at that. It now knows that I'm looking at that. And you can start to use that in an AR environment or any other application environment you've got. Just incredible. And the keynote speech, you might have noticed, was about Google's Flutter. And I saw in the GDG thing that's coming, a discussion about Flutter. You really should take a look at it. They're trying to do one of these things, build one UI once and deploy it both to iOS and to Android. And the rumor is it's imminent for release. So which was the best conference? Oh, I skipped a slide. No, I did. Yeah, so the best example I can think of for Tobias's work is if you think of a radiologist, sort of looking at different parts of the X-ray, the system being able to track where they're looking, and they're dictating their results as they're doing that. That's the kind of app that I think this really could work in. You could use it for coaching and training, or just as a consultative learning process. What was the best conference? Well, I've been to 3 this year. I went to the ALT conference in San Jose, NS Spain, and to MobiConf. MobiConf was the most professional next to an Apple presentation conference, but I would say NS Spain was my favorite. And I'll go back there next year, not for the wine or anything like that, but just for the event. Very well, nicely done. What are my recommendations? They're really tips for myself. Take my GoPro, which is running right now, and see whether I can better capture things like the guys from Uber before they get censored. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll be around to the end for any questions. And there's somebody says something about links, and there's the set of links, the videos from NS Spain, all the years, several years back, the presentations from NS Spain, some pointers for some of the presentations from MobiConf, but the videos haven't been released yet. How did I go? Time for questions or not?
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
Any questions for Ed? Yeah.
So I watched that Uber talk recently about their new architecture, and it was fascinating.
Yes.
But I'm wondering exactly what got cut out, because I guess the video was like 20 to 30 minutes long. Was their talk like
their presentation was an hour long.
Right. So can you enlighten us as to what was missing?
No,
Okay.
that's why I say, yeah, next time I'm taking the GoPro and I'm recording everything myself.
Right, cool.
And I don't know whether it's NFC enabled. Maybe we can do your test.
Hi.
Hi.
You said something about procedural programming. Obviously, all of us are stuck in the procedural programming paradigm. But what are your thoughts on the not procedural programming? Things like
Oh, I'm finding it very hard.
Data programming, register programming, and even Forth and Kona, right, which have dual-purpose instructions.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you because of the motorbike.
So, Forth and Kona, there are 2 languages that have dual-purpose, like quantum languages, but they work on normal CPUs.
No, I'm not that advanced. I really walked away from professional programming in 1979, and hence the pictures of all those antique machines. And then I had done prototyping, and I'd sort of prototype something with a scripting language and then say to one of my developers, this is what I've got to sign off from my client, go build it for me. And I'd do the prototype in a weekend, and they would take 2 months to build the thing robustly. I'm going through a very steep learning curve personally, which is why I went and did a deep dive into these conferences to try and understand all of the new environment that you guys are all very familiar with. And then one of the reasons I concentrated on the UX stream at MobiConf is I have a client who's got an app at the moment that people are building for him, and I'm consulting with him about the design aspects, pricing aspects, and that kind of thing. Another question, perhaps? Great. On with the show. Thank you.
That was really great. Ed contacted me earlier this week saying, hey, you know, I've just come back from overseas. You know, does anyone want to hear about my travels? And I said, of course. If you ever go traveling or go to a conference, you know, don't assume that everyone else knows about it or everyone else has been. Come and chat about it. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be. It should probably be politically correct. That's what I was about to say. But anyway, yeah, thank you, Ed. We might take sort of 10-minute break, and we'll come back with Jet, who's going to talk about CI and CD. So yeah, we'll see you in about 10 minutes. All right, let's get going. It's 20 to 8. I'll just put the mic on you, Jet, and then we get going. All right, over to you, Jet.
Thanks. All right, good evening, everyone. So recently I looked at a few continuous integration or continuous deployment solutions for work because we are not using any at the moment. And so I had a few names in my head, and I did a quick Google search and started to look around. And where I work, we have a few constraints. So we don't have a spare physical machine. It's a really small team, early startup, so we can't afford yet to have even a spare machine. Small team, so we don't want to have someone to have to babysit a config, so we're looking for something easy, and we are looking for something cheap. And the criteria I've been looking for this trial is the ability to try a solution for free for maybe like a couple weeks or for a smaller scale. If it's easy to configure, I don't want to have to bang my head against an obscure file format or something like that. And our code is hosted on GitHub, so it has to be compatible with GitHub. That wasn't hard. The short list of what I reviewed is Circle CI, Travis CI, GitLab CI, and Bitrise, and Microsoft Azure Pipeline, or something like that. I don't know exactly the name of the solution. Honorable mentions, so things that didn't make the cut for some reason: BuildKite, GoCD, Bamboo CI, or CodeShip. BuildKite because it requires agents. And as I said, we're looking at something that's fully hosted. GoCD because it requires Java. And it also requires your own runners. But I thought that was funny to use that emoji. Bamboo CI, it's something that, so Bamboo CI, they have several offers, and the one I was looking at, you download a piece of software that you install, it has nothing to do with them. So it's not even like BuildKite, for example, where your runners connect to like some central master organizer or whatever. It's something, from what I understand, something you download, and still it's limited to 10 jobs. So like you're fully running it on your own. You pay for a piece of software. It's a one-time fee, so that's good. It's only $10, and the proceeds are donated to charity. But there's some limits in this software that you run on your own machine. So that was a bit weird, or maybe I didn't understand. And CodeShip has no support for iOS, so there's no macOS runners. So in no particular order, let's start with Circle CI, the CI that has a logo that resembles a lot like some iteration of Uber. So Circle CI, the lowest plan is $39 US dollars. So all the prices are in US dollars. You're limited at 5 builds a day, which sounds very low, but if you have a really small team and you're only pushing from time to time, that could work. I don't know if that would be a problem so far. And you have 500 minutes of build per month, and I have no idea if that's a lot or if that's very little. It sounds very little to me, but I don't know. So my approach with all those services that I tried is I have like a few open source, very small projects on GitHub, like pet projects, and one of them was really simple, I thought, has very little dependencies and very basic Xcode setup, so I'm going to try and plug it and see how long it takes me between the moment I sign up and the moment I can have a green build. And with CircleCI, so I sign up and it walks you through a YAML config that's pretty simple. Like there's very little you put by default. So I guess there's a lot of good defaults. So simple config. It provides a template for iOS. It detects, I think, that it's an iOS project and provides the appropriate template that's just a one-size-fits-all. And it connects to GitHub and Bitbucket. So like, I was happy with that. It was the first one I tried early in the evening last night. And not so early in the evening, actually. And so I plug it in, and 10 minutes in, I'm already pushing the YAML file on my project. And that's all fine and dandy. And as I'm trying to run, it says, oh, you need to have a macOS runner, and you don't have in your plan. So I go and try and change the plan. And even though the website says there's a free trial, there's no way for me to proceed without putting my credit card detail. And that made me really angry because I don't want to have to deal with, like, if they charge me and they give my money back later, I don't want to have to deal with that. And so what I did is on my bank account, I moved all but $10 because I thought maybe there was a Stripe logo, so I thought Stripe maybe handles that. It just pings you for like $1 to check that you have, like, your credit card is valid or whatever. So I left only $10 on my credit card, and even with that, it wouldn't go through. So I don't know if it would have blocked the full amount, and I don't know if I pay annually or monthly. So I was like, I didn't want to risk it. So like, I bail here. And I can't delete my account. I couldn't find anywhere to delete my account. And I hate when services online, you can't easily delete your account. So first try, CircleCI, I'm sorry, disqualified. So I'm trying to make this review a bit easy, and so you have like one thing to remember if it was good or not according to me and my criteria. So let's assume that it's an app that you just downloaded on the App Store, so there's an app review, and it's a 1 star. Contrial without giving my credit card details? No, thank you. So yeah, 1 star for CircleCI, sorry. TravisCI. TravisCI, so there's travis-ci.org and travis-ci.com. One is for open source, I think, and one is for commercial or enterprise. The cheapest plan is $69 a month, and you have one concurrent build at a time. There's no other limitations that I could see, so you can just build like one job, but there's no limits in how many times a day or how many minutes a month or whatever, apparently. What's good is that it's a fine-grained GitHub integration. It doesn't just ask for your GitHub and that's it, because the previous one and the others just ask for your GitHub and they have access to all your repos and that's it. This one asks for your GitHub access and then asks for which repo, and for this repo what you want to do with it. I don't remember exactly, but it was fine-grained. It was like, maybe if it was like V2 of the GitHub integration, they've implemented it, whereas everyone stayed with the V1. It seemed like that. Obviously, just after CircleCI, I was really happy that on their website they said no credit card required and no credit card required, so I could build. It has CocoaPod integration, but I didn't need it because the only dependency I have on my simple pet project is Carthage, and it was pretty easy to run a few commands to have brew install Carthage and then run Carthage. So the review for Travis is pretty good. The UI is a bit basic. But you can see that it's been built by people who want things to work. It may not look pretty sometimes in some corners, and it may be a bit difficult to find a setting, but it feels like you can pretty much script and put options into anything. So it gives you confidence that you won't be blocked by something one day, like you want to do something a bit crazy and it won't let you because there's not this option. So that's the feeling I had with TravisCI. Then is GitLab. So GitLab, what's a bit annoying is you need to host your code on GitLab. There is a few, like if you have an open source project, which my test project is open source, but I was reviewing this for work. So I think the thing that is free for open source, you need to actually download and run it on your own runner, and the free tier. Anyway, I was confused, and apparently you need to run your own runner, and maybe I didn't read well the website, so maybe it would have been in the honorable mentions if I had read the website better. But it seems like it's a good integrated tool that provides more than just CI. You have communication, you have ticketing, you have it's Trello, it's GitHub, it's a CI system, and it's much more. It's really good because there's a large feature set. It's continuously contributed to, and you have new features every month. Apparently, I haven't tested, but that's what they claim. And I've reviewed GitLab like a couple years ago, and it has changed a lot. Like there's constantly new features, and it seemed like very robust. Maybe not designed specifically for mobile, more maybe for like web development. So maybe you'd be a bit the odd one out if you try and run like a macOS runner or something like this. I don't know. But it seems powerful and it seems pretty good, but not adapted. So it's only 2-star review, sorry. And it looks like it's been built by and for developers, so they know what they want and it's something powerful. So next was one that I didn't know about and I had missed in my Google search, but it was mentioned on Slack the other day. So I tried Bitrise. And what's good with Bitrise, okay, so you can plug a GitHub repo, you can log in with a GitHub account, Bitbucket account, or GitLab account. It still requires you to create your Bitrise account. I don't know why, just so you have your own password, so whatever. And you can add an arbitrary Git repo. So it doesn't have to be GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab. You can add any repo. So if you have the address of the repo, you just plug it in and it works. Obviously, no credit card. That's good. It detects automatically the project setup, but not only like what CircleCI did, and I don't think Travis CI detects anything, maybe just the language or the fact that it's Xcode. This one actually reads your repo, look into it, and prepares the config YAML file with the Carthage. It detects that you have Carthage and it put like a line into your YAML file saying Carthage update or Bootstrap or whatever the default safe option is. It detects that there's no CocoaPods in my project, for example. Like it's kind of well integrated. Like it understands much more than just the top level. And it has like the web UI for Bitrise is kind of a GUI for configuring your pipelines and your YAML file. And it's pretty good. Like some people don't like GUIs, they want to like just dive into the code. And obviously you can see the YAML that it generates and you can change that if you want by hand, that's fine. You can download it and probably commit it into the repo. I haven't tried that, but I would assume it works. So it's pretty good. Like it detects in depth the characteristic of your project and generates a YAML file, and you can edit it and move things around like drag and drop, or you can edit the YAML online. And each step of a pipeline is kind of a mini program or mini script, and each one of those mini scripts, well, maybe not mini actually, big scripts, I don't know. Haven't looked at them. They are a separate GitHub repo and it's open source, and they are versioned. So it means, like for example, the execute a random script, it's execute a random script v141, for example. And if they realize that there's better support for something, I guess they would update that repo. So your pipeline is versioned. Each step of your pipeline is versioned, and it's almost overwhelming. Like there's quite a few options, but it also gives a confidence that you can choose the version of a pipeline element. For example, if you know something worked with the Xcode plugin in your pipeline or the Carthage plugin in your pipeline, it worked with this version 141 with your esoteric setup, then you can log to that, or you can always update to the the highest plugin. It also connects to your Apple developer account. I haven't tried that. I don't know if it's a good point or a bad point. I don't know if it would mess with your signing certificates and stuff like that, provision profile and stuff. But in a way now it's like all of these things have been around for a long time, so I would trust them. I don't know. I would trust them to say, yeah, do that. So you can download all the certificates, and I think it also says it provisions your devices, your test devices for deployment as well. So it sounds promising, and you can delete your account. So it means that if I don't choose Bitrise, I'll probably be able to delete my account from them, which is good. So they get 4 stars. And you always have to have a snarky remark in an App Store review, right? So yeah, the web UI looks a bit laggy, so I'm sorry, I have to say it. Next, something also that I didn't think of, maybe because the first word is Microsoft, but it was suggested by Baz, and I had to be thorough and review it. So I think it's called Microsoft Azure DevOps, but we all know it's probably actually called Microsoft Azure Pipelines DevOps Solution Standard Edition 2018. I don't know. And literally, I could not find the actual name of the thing. So let's call it Azure DevOps. It works with your code on GitHub. It analyzes your repo, and it suggests your Xcode template with a config YAML file. It lets you edit and commit the YAML file directly from the web UI. I put like a mind-blown emoji because it seems basic and obvious, but none of the other things that I reviewed do that. They all tell you, please copy this YAML file, paste it into a file, and commit it and push it when they have access to your repo. So maybe they don't have push access, they just have read access, but I think they would have push access, I don't know. But I was like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. You edit the YAML file, it says, do you want to push this YAML file to your repo? And it's like, yeah, sure, do it. It knows about CocoaPods, it knows about, I think the VM, the virtual image of macOS has Carthage installed, the latest version as of yesterday, so it was pretty good. And really, like, the code of conduct of CocoaHeads say we should not discriminate on platforms. So I'm like, the only thing that I really hated about this was the really confusing UI, Microsoft style. Like you have 7 menus that are almost the same name. And it's like you have sign up, your account, profile, settings, all next to each other. Like, which one is which? And you have like the entire top of the screen with menus and sub-menus and sub-menus. And like at first line in on the account, like you create a new account, you have your onboarding thing, you create your first pipeline, that's good. And then I run it and it failed because I forgot to put Carthage or whatever, or I didn't know how to put it. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll figure it out. And it crashed it. It didn't build, it failed. So I want to edit the pipeline. Where is my pipeline? It's in the small cog thing where you say edit, and then it brings, like, it took me literally 10 minutes to find how to edit my pipeline, and it was 11 p.m. and I didn't want to wake up my housemates, but I was really ready to bang on my desk because it was really making me angry. So it was a really confusing UI. So that's why I put it. But apart from that, it's pretty good. So it has a 3-star review, but it made me angry, and that's not good. And also get a bit of snark, like, could I use it every day? But after all, if you're on GitHub, you're also running on a Microsoft platform, so I guess. If you want the recap, that's it. No words, no characters, just icons and stars. That's the most succinct I could do. And that's it. That's me. If you want on Twitter and GitHub, I am Jean-Etienne. That's it. I haven't picked because this presentation is before. This actually is my report to the CTO of the company. So, hi Mika. And we'll make a choice soon. I personally really liked Bitrise. It felt like it was made for maybe mobile dev, or at least like modern dev. Whereas all the other ones are a bit too generic. Like Travis CI is really good. I feel like it's like robust, focused. It's just a CI, not trying to do too much, and still you have plenty of options. And Bitrise felt really good. And I think in terms of pricing, Bitrise is really cheap. I think it's 15. I haven't put the price down. Yeah, I think Bitrise is pretty cheap for what it is. And the other ones, I haven't even looked at the price of the Microsoft solution actually. Maybe it's cheap. I don't know. I liked, like, I wanted to try those and really have a feel in 10 or 15 minutes. It actually took me like more than half an hour per service to try. But the one that had the most fun, and at some point I was like, oh, I'll spend like 45 minutes on this one, was Bitrise. Because you could play around, like, and you push things, you build again. And from the moment you sign up to the moment you have your first green build, I didn't have to push anything on my repo. I didn't have to fiddle with anything boring or annoying. It built, and that's what I want at this stage. So for my criteria, that's what seems to be good.
So we'll go for questions, and I'll
go ahead.
So you were building apps, Xcode apps.
Yeah, iOS apps.
Right. Do you have I have 2 questions. Do you have indicative build times? And since Go has an advertised multi-threading feature that is an order of magnitude like 100 times better than other threading technologies,
What do you mean? How the build time compares on all those CI services?
Yeah.
So my project has a lot of heavy dependencies, and on this machine it builds in 2 minutes, 2 minutes and a half. But that's because, but I didn't, you know what? I don't know actually. Because the only thing I built was my pet project, and I didn't build like the project from work, which would be a better sample, because my pet project there's like 2 files, and there's one Carthage dependency. And on all those things, the Carthage dependency, I didn't want to set up caching, so every time it runs, it reinstalls Carthage on some of them, and sometimes it rechecks the entire thing even though Carthage hasn't updated, the dependency hasn't updated. So it was like a quick and lazy setup just to see if it's green and it passes. But if I were using any of those services, I would probably do a bit more, a smarter setup where it caches a few things up, because I don't need to rebuild my dependency every time. It didn't seem that anything was overly slow, but that's just my feeling.
The code threading model is pretty much irrelevant for Bitrise because it's just running other tools sequentially, so it's completely irrelevant. The last app that I built had an Android app and an iOS app, and the Android one took about twice as long on Bitrise as it did for iOS. So it'd be like 20 minutes for a full build with UI tests on Android, and it'd be like 10 minutes for iOS.
And you can configure the number of CPUs your Bitrise uses.
On the main stage, you get one concurrent agent, that's it. So you can't configure anything.
Considering the limited amount of resources and money and the minimal amount of people you seem to have, why have a CI/CD system in the first place? Can't you just go along for like a few weeks or months without a CI/CD system? Could you just skip the whole thing entirely?
Yeah, we could, and that's what they've been doing until I joined. And it's only 2 iOS developers at the moment, and when we do release, it's one of us building and shipping to the App Store. So it works. It's just that we would like to have a bit more, how to say, be a bit more safe on the build side, that we can push something, and at least when you're pushing a PR, see that it runs the tests, and that the little tests we have are actually green, and that there's no merge conflict, or there's not even a build problem, because that could happen, like even like human error. And so if on the cheap we can avoid human errors, why not? If none of this is cheap enough or none of this is convenient enough, we'll probably continue until we have more funding or until something really screws up. But I think there's probably a solution that's good enough in one of those.
I'll ask a question. Can we see a using anger scenario in a couple of months? Results.
Do you want to see how I am when I'm angry?
No, just hoping we'll see you execute and see some final results and see how it went in the end, rather than just the research. It'd just be nice to see a follow-up presentation and just hope.
Let us know what you do.
Yeah, I'll tell you whatever I use in the end, and if it makes me angry. But when I was angry yesterday, it was 11 p.m. so I was considering. I was like, that's pretty much what it was.
I know it probably sounds like a crazy idea, but did you consider, for example, setting up an Xcode bots server on one of the developers' machines?
I did not think about Xcode bots.
One of the product manager's machines, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, like, instead of mining Bitcoin or something, just set up a server bot.
That's a good idea. But it still requires to have a machine dedicated, not dedicated, but a machine for that's up.
Yeah.
And we are a remote company, so I'm here. Some of them are in Berlin, some of them are in Sweden, some of them are in the US. So it would probably be a nightmare to say, hey, can you open your lid, please? At like 2 in the morning, because I want to build, I want to try something. Can you just open the lid? Yeah. So, yeah.
And you hadn't thought of like a $200 Mac Mini from eBay?
Yeah, that could be a solution. But again, you need to have someone actually set it up, plug it in, and you need to have developers spend a couple of hours setting it up and babysitting it from time to time, upgrading OS 10 and checking if something's wrong, which in the short or medium term is actually could be more expensive than just paying like $15 a month. So I don't know. The analysis hasn't been pushed farther than what you've seen tonight.
So what's with the remote building? Are there any local build solutions available at all?
Some of the solutions, the ones that I've put in the honorable mention, they require you to install, not this one. Some of those, you have like a central kind of master and you have workers the workers is a piece of software that you install on a machine, and you have like a Mac Mini or a spare Mac that you have in the office. And so you can have local builds. But I disqualified those because that's out of my criteria for this research.
Bitrise, I think it uses Fastlane to run its own YAML files as built on your own as well.
Okay.
If that helps.
What sort of build output do you get? Like, what's the does it send you an email with how the run results went and things like unit tests?
Most of those, you can, in the YAML file, you can say where your test output is stored. So it looks for an XML test output, for example. So you can put it on the page. You can compare like previous builds if the test is like more green this way or like this way. You can probably, most of them, you can say if you want to be notified of successful builds, failed builds, both, which email, all that kind of stuff. Most of the time, that's a classic setup is you get notified if something goes wrong and or if something goes right.
It could be a gate on your PR as well.
Say again?
It could be a gate on your PR. So
it could be like who pushes the PR, gets the green build email, and if it's red, someone else or everyone else, or the other way around.
You actually have it so that you can't actually merge your PR until the build's been passed.
Oh yeah, with GitHub integration, you can have checks on the PR,
That's what it's Slack integration as well.
Yeah, let's put more things into Slack. All good? Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Jay. All right, so I think one of the, I actually roped Jet into that presentation because he was kind of doing his research obviously on his own and then asked for some opinions in the Slack channel. I said everyone would be interested in this kind of thinking. I think everyone's had to make a decision on a CI environment or a CI setup at some stage.
The moral of the story is don't ask a question, you're waiting for presentation. Otherwise you're waiting for a presentation.
Maybe that, yeah, maybe.
Just kidding.
One of the, as I said last month, one of the great things that's happened on Slack recently is this Today I Learnt channel. So what I did last month was trawl through the month prior with all the stuff people put in there. This is nearly everything that was useful. Sometimes Today I Learnt is, just a bit of a snark against something else. I've tried to keep this a bit productive. So we'll start at the beginning, and this literally was the morning after last CocoaHeads. I'm going to publish all these slides on GitHub. There's a link at the end. There'll be a PDF at the end. So you don't have to, unless you want to, you don't have to write down everything. But here's some commands to stop a Mac from going to sleep and stop the display sleeping. If you are not Jet and you are setting up a CI box yourself, these are super handy things to do PM set sleep 0 and display sleep 0. You can also go to system preferences, but you can also run this in a bash script as well. So that is an interesting one. That was Stu and Pete that put that together. Or worked that out. I'm sure I worked that out years ago. I'm sure we've all worked that a few times. You can open a URL in the simulator using XC run. There's a million things you can do with that, apparently. I think that'll fill TIL for a while. But you can open a URL in your simulator, and if it's a deep link, it'll then launch your app. So that's a great way to test your deep link bits and pieces. App Store Connect now shows you, well, not now, it shows you, I have seen this before, it shows you opt-ins for App Store Analytics. So you can get the gist of how many people are giving your app App Store Analytics. This one I didn't know. In iOS 12 on non-3D touch phones, you can long press the space bar to activate trackpad mode. So I haven't fiddled with that myself, but that's pretty cool. A lot of today I learnt is shortcuts and things that are sort of there and have always been there that someone's worked out. And everyone that's posted something that maybe they think, oh, I feel silly for just learning that today. All of these have had 2 or 3 or 4 responses with a thumbs up or like, oh, or a head exploding emoji or something. All iPads. You can record a video of the simulator. We're back to XC run. Record video, type, and then where to put it. Control C to get that out. That could be super handy for recording. I guess you could record UI tests or just record yourself tapping through, especially for the App Store. I forgot about this, and I have 2 phones that have shit batteries that need to be fixed. $39, book it in at Chadstone and take it there. They'll fix it for you. $39 is pretty compelling. Baz, this is your 3rd or 4th one so far. You've been on a roll this month. As iOS 12 came out, Baz jumped in the morning. It's like, hold on, like if you don't want your phone to automatically update to iOS 12, install the tvOS config file, and it will look for tvOS updates that aren't compatible. And you'll never get the auto updates. Everywhere I've ever worked has had a pile of old devices that are sort of stuck on betas or like they're just not in between things. This will get you, keep the phone where it should be. Install it on device. You can, I think you also, I didn't add it here, you can still update manually. This is just the automatic find. So that's a really good one. I mean, you could put that on your own phone just anyway, and then you're in control. This one took a few edits from Baz. There were a couple of comments, a couple of different versions of this, but I actually myself have got an app to build at the moment that will do this. So if you've got a stack view, you make the components side by side in regular width, which is iPad width or horizontal iPhone, and then make them fall under each other in compact, which is vertical iPhone. So it's probably a good screenshot to have a look at later on, but it's all about in your storyboard setting up those really odd constraints based on the, what's it called? The classes and things, yeah. Zach noticed that hides bottom bar when pushed is a property of UI view controller. That's super valuable if you've got a tab bar or something that you want to get rid of. I think there's also hide top bar when pushed as well. Baz, you won an award with this one. What's new in Swift 4.2 is a Hacking with Swift blog post, which basically is just all TIL about Swift 4.2. I didn't go into the detail of all that, but that's a great reference for all the random bits and bobs that are new with Swift 4.2. All right, some of these get a bit wordy. So, this was cool. This is cool because you always wonder why can I do a preconditioned failure or some of those other macros in a guard statement, and I don't have to do a return. And there's some fancy compiler type or some special compiler type. Plus, you wouldn't have learnt this from here. You would have already known this. The never type signals to the compiler that, like, it's never going to return. Yeah, so that was a cool one to see, because I think I only learnt that very recently myself. Feel free to jump in as well, Vlass, if I'm misrepresenting never.
Never is a empty enum type, but that means it cannot be instantiated, so that means it cannot be returned.
Right.
But it's new in 4.2.
I'll put that in there for next month. Stu learnt the hard way that calling on a URL session data task, if you don't call resume, it doesn't run. Yeah, that's one of those things where you're sitting there waiting. But that's a good one to... It's good that you've learnt that. It's good to, you know... Test flight public links became a thing this month. So I guess we all learnt that implicitly. I think I remember someone mentioning it. Oh, look, they said this at WWDC. Now it's here. And then 4 hours later, the email came out and it got dropped in the general channel that now they're a thing. Has anyone used public links yet? Successfully? Yep.
We've got public there actually.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there's still photo booth on Mac OS. I can't remember the last time I used it, but I mean, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess it's still there.
Top tip for photo booth: if you've got kids under 10 that you want to entertain for at least half an hour, stick them in front of photo booth. Just let them go.
So this is half an hour value, you reckon?
Yeah,
yep. I worked out, again, through this project that needs a stack view that goes sideways and upside down. Stack view actually came in iOS 9. In my head, I thought it was iOS 10 the whole time. I was just about to write one of those if available things and put my stack view in, because I'm like, screw doing this manually, I'll work out iOS 9 later. And I put it in and it didn't complain, so it's there in iOS 9. But the advice from the corners of the room were, it's very buggy in iOS 9. So we'll see how my mileage goes on that one. But yeah, stack view iOS 9. The fancy function with no parameters that returns nothing, apparently the preferred way for that is thingo void instead of thingo. There you go. We get into some shortcuts here. I try to visualize shortcuts in my head from the keyboard. This has got all of them. Control Alt Command U runs a single test that your cursor's in. Great. And if you use G, it'll run the last set of tests. So that's a lot of the TIL stuff has a follow-up, which is also super valuable. So yeah, Control Alt Command U. You can do Command Shift D to focus a view in the view debugger. The view debugger, for those that don't know, is the thing that's not reveal. It's in Xcode. I've never used it. I'm not sure how to get into that state where a Command Shift D would do something, but that's a thing. Okay, this one, you've got all your folders in Xcode. I thought it meant in the Finder, but apparently it works in Finder and Xcode. If you tap on the arrow and you hold Option, it'll expand all the subfolders, and it works in reverse. So if you tap on the folder, it'll bring them all in.
Any outline view that does that.
Which one?
Any outline view.
Any outline view, yep. So that's pretty cool. Overscroll is a thing in Xcode 10. You can keep scrolling. By default, I think it's something. Is it there by default? If it's not, it should be. You can turn it on in the settings, and it's like someone's added 25 carriage returns after your thing, but SwiftLint doesn't complain that there's blank space at the bottom. It's excellent. Everything else has had it forever. Xcode now has it. You can show all the tabs in Xcode with Command Shift / backslash. That's cool. Who uses tabs in Xcode? Oh no, Pablo's the only one on this side of the room. Okay. And yeah, most of the tab shortcuts work across all tabbed apps as well. I find Command Shift brackets tend to move between the tabs as well, which is mainly in Safari, because that's all I use in Safari is tabs, but that's the only place I use tabs. Oh, Baz. I could have guessed this response, because finding finding the default template that Xcode puts at the top of all your files, it's actually quite annoying, especially if you're working for somebody else or you're at a different organization or something like that. It adds all that crap at the top. That will find it, that will remove it. But more interestingly, Brett jumped in the comments, or in the comments of that. There's a blog post by Ollie that's all about creating your own templates, and it's super, super easy. So you can create it specific to your project, specific to your Mac, like there's all the layers of hierarchy. And I just did this for my project, not because of this, but I just decided to do this today because I got sick of the default one. But jump into the Xcode 9 text macros there, and then create your own version, and then use just Baz's regex here to fix all the old ones. But that's a great link there.
I did a PR this week that deleted those from 312 files.
You can delete apps from App Store Connect now. I mean, how many apps are there from 8 or 9 years ago that was just like test app 1 and that never got released, or some client app that you've got on your own account because you needed to test push notifications, it didn't have access as an admin in their account. How many of those are just duplicated across the board? Now you can delete them. Cool. I don't know if it deletes the app ID though, but at least it's gone from that App Store Connect thing. You can make it clean. I think Adam has been getting into some Android development. He's learned a lot this month on Android development. But yeah, to enable developer mode on an Android phone, I mean, a lot of people would know this. You've got to tap a button hidden in the settings, like 6 layers deep, like 7 times, at least about 7 times. It's vendor dependent. Today I learned. The slides for Today I Learnt this month will be, or they are up on melbournecocoaheads.com/TIL. It just directs to the GitHub repo that I'll post this to. Nothing sophisticated. But that channel, the TIL channel is lots of fun. Jump in and no one's posted anything in there that everyone's just like, oh. Everyone's really enjoyed everything everyone's posted. And if you go traveling and come back, tell us about that as well. I will finish up before anything else with my usual last few slides without any pause. Our next hack night is next Wednesday at Cognizant, just down the road here. Try and get in by 6:30. The doors get a bit locky around that time.
We supposedly got the 24-hour access card. We were able to get the pizza in this time.
Okay, so that might not be too much of a problem. Yeah, come along if you've got a little project you want to hack on, or you've got a question you want to get someone asked. Android, iOS, IoT, anything. Everyone there everyone there knows everything. Next drink night is the last Tuesday of this month at the Millhouse. NS Breakfast, the first Friday of next month. If you're interested in NS Breakfast, which is just basically catch up and have a breakfast with Marius, let's jump in. Excellent, excellent. There's normally only a few people. I think, Audrey, you must have been away this month. It's normally only a few. It's always good, though. Next meetup, we're back here November 8th. I think we've got a couple of spots for some presentations, if anything jogs your memory. But if I don't hear from you, we'll see you back here then. And now to the pub. Thanks for coming.